What happens when a legendary actor decides he's not going to be steamrolled by a talk show host who's built a career out of doing exactly that? You're about to see one of the most explosive on-air collisions in daytime TV history. Joy Behar thought she could corner Gary Oldman with her usual tactics. What she didn't know was that she was about to go head-to-head with someone who doesn't rattle ever. By the end of this interview, Joy would be the one storming off her own set, while millions of viewers watched in disbelief, and the rest of the panel scrambled to keep the show from completely derailing. But before we break down this unbelievable showdown, hit subscribe and drop a comment, because what went down on that stage was nothing short of chaos. It started like any other Tuesday on The View. The studio buzzed with pre-show energy. Makeup artists rushed around, producers whispered through last-minute notes, and Gary Oldman was set to appear in the second segment to promote his new film, a gritty political drama about corruption. Simple, easy, routine, or so everyone thought. Joy Behar settled into her seat, coffee in hand, convinced she had the perfect set of gotcha questions. She believed she was ready. She wasn't. When the show came back from commercial, Whoopi Goldberg welcomed Gary Oldman to warm applause. He walked on stage with his usual quiet confidence. Greeting the audience before sitting down, the conversation began smoothly enough. Whoopi lobbed a few softballs about his preparation for the role. Oldman spoke thoughtfully about his research, the people he met, and why telling honest stories about power mattered. Then Joy leaned forward. Anyone familiar with the show recognized that look, the glint that meant she wasn't about to play nice Gary. "I need to ask you about something," she began, slipping into her interrogation voice. "A few months ago, you made comments about American voters that I found pretty concerning. You suggested that people here don't understand the issues they're voting on." The room froze. Oldman stayed calm, though a keen observer might have noticed the slight tension around his eyes. "I'm not sure I follow," he said evenly. "What comments are you referring to?" Joy pulled out a printed sheet, clearly something she'd been waiting to use. "You said, and I quote, that American political discourse has become so polarized that voters on both sides make decisions based on emotion rather than facts. Sounds pretty condescending, doesn't it?" Oldman let the silence hang for a beat before answering. "Well, Joy, if you're going to quote me, it might help to include the full context. That interview was about the responsibility of artists to portray complex issues honestly. It's not a blanket criticism of an entire country." "But you did say it," Joy pressed, volume ticking upward. "You can't deny that." "I'm not denying it," he replied, voice still controlled, but now edged with steel. "I'm pointing out that lifting a single line from a long conversation and stripping it of context is exactly the kind of behavior that worsens the problem you claim to be worried about." The tension tightened. The hosts exchanged uneasy glances. The audience sensed something big was happening, but Joy wasn't done, context or not. "Gary, you're a guest in our country. You come here, make your money here, promote your movies here, and then go overseas and criticize the way Americans think and vote. Isn't that hypocritical?" That was the moment everything shifted. Oldman's posture didn't change, but the atmosphere did. The gentleness remained, but it was now backed by iron. "A guest in your country," he repeated slowly, staring directly at her, and that's where everything truly began to unravel. "I've paid more in taxes to this country than most people will see in a lifetime," Oldman said, his tone still controlled but unmistakably firm. "I've raised my children here. I've built a life here. I've contributed to communities here. The idea that my British accent somehow makes me an outsider looking in. That's not just wrong, it's insulting," the audience murmured, a ripple of discomfort moving through the studio. Some looked uneasy with Joy's line of questioning. Others leaned forward, hungry for the confrontation. Joy saw the reaction and, instead of easing off, she pushed harder. "I'm not saying you're not welcome here, Gary," she said sharply. "I'm saying maybe you should show a little more gratitude for everything America has given you. Instead of criticizing the people who made your success possible." Grateful Oldman echoed, the word landing like a challenge. "Joy, gratitude doesn't require silence. In fact, real gratitude rooted in caring about a place and its people sometimes means asking difficult questions. Sometimes it means having uncomfortable conversations. Whoopi tried to jump in. Maybe we should talk about the film, but Joy wasn't hearing any of it. That's a lovely speech, Gary, she cut in. But what I heard was you talking down to American voters like we're too stupid to understand our own country. Oldman gently set down the water glass he'd been holding. Then he looked straight at Joy, his voice low, but resonating through the entire studio. Joy, I've done countless interviews in my career. I've handled provocative questions, challenging questions of hostile ones. But what you're doing right now, it isn't journalism. He paused. It's not even good television. Few people in the audience gasped. You've taken a thoughtful discussion about the role of media in a democracy, continued, stripped it of context, and turned it into a weapon to attack a guest on your own show. If anyone here is talking down to people, it's you talking down to your own audience by assuming they can't handle nuance or complexity. The silence afterward was suffocating. Joy Behar's face flushed crimson beneath layers of makeup, unable to hide the fury building beneath the surface. She was not accustomed to being challenged, much less dismantled in front of millions. Excuse me. Joy snapped, her voice cracking as she struggled to stay composed. I think you're being a little dramatic, Gary. I'm just asking legitimate questions. Dramatic? Oldman leaned back, still perfectly calm. Joy, you've accused me of being ungrateful for working in America. You've suggested I'm some sort of foreign interloper. You've misrepresented my words to manufacture controversy. If that's what you consider legitimate journalism, then yes, we have very different standards. The other hosts shifted uneasily in their seats, unsure whether to intervene. No, Joy barked, her temper finally breaking. She sat up straighter, eyes blazing. I can speak for myself. Thank you very much. What I'm saying is that you seem to have a real issue with Americans having opinions about your opinions. Isn't that exactly the kind of elitist attitude people are tired of? For the first time all morning, Old Man's expression flickered with amusement. Elitist? He repeated softly. Joy, you're sitting on a nationally televised platform, interrupting your guest, misquoting him, and then attacking him for clarifying his own words. If we're discussing elitist behavior, he nodded toward her. Perhaps you should look in a mirror, the audience erupted. Gasps, murmurs, some outright applause. Joy's face shifted from red to a deep, furious purple. How dare you, she hissed, leaning forward, eyes narrowed to slits. You come on our show, on our platform, and you lecture me about journalism? I've been doing this longer than you've been making movies in this country. And yet, Old Man replied with devastating calm, that experience doesn't seem to have translated into wisdom or professionalism. Joy lurched to her feet so abruptly her chair rolled back several feet, nearly toppling over. That's it, she shouted. I'm not going to sit here and be insulted by someone who thinks his British accent makes him better than everyone else. Joy, please, Whoopi tried again. But Joy wasn't listening. No, Whoopi. This is the problem, she ranted, voice shaking with fury. Hollywood types come here, make millions off American audiences, and then turn around and act like we're beneath them. I'm sick of it. Through it all, Gary Oldman remained seated composed, still almost serene, his hands folded calmly in his lap. Joy, at no point have I suggested anyone is beneath me, Gary said, each syllable calm and razor sharp. What I have said is that you're behaving unprofessionally, and your reaction right now is proving that point rather spectacularly. Unprofessionally. Joy's voice shot up an octave, trembling with outrage. You want to see unprofessional? Unprofessional is coming on a talk show and acting like you're too good to answer direct questions. I've answered every question you've asked, Gary replied, still maddeningly even. What I haven't done is let you twist my words or attack my character without responding. If that makes you uncomfortable, he let the pause linger. Perhaps the problem isn't with my answers. Sarah N. jumped in like someone grabbing a fire extinguisher. Maybe we should take a commercial break. No, Joy snapped toward, her eyes blazing. We're not taking a break. I want everyone to see this. I want them to see how these Hollywood elites really feel about regular Americans. That was when Gary finally stood. He didn't shout. He didn't posture. He simply rose to his full height, and the studio seemed to shrink around him. "Joy," he said, his voice slicing clean through her fury. "I've spent my entire career studying people. What motivates them? What frightens them? What pushes them past reason? And right now, I'm looking at someone so desperate to be right, so terrified of being challenged, she'd rather humiliate herself and her colleagues on national television than admit she made a mistake." Joy screamed, spit catching the stage lights. "The mistake was booking you on this show," perhaps Gary said quietly, "but not for the reasons you believe." Something in Joy snapped. She turned to the producers behind the cameras, jabbing a finger toward Gary like she was issuing an arrest warrant. "Get him out of here. I'm not doing this anymore. Either he goes or I go." Whoopi stood quickly, trying to restore order. "Joy, let's just calm down. Don't tell me to calm down." Joy whirled on her friend of decades. "Are you taking his side too? Is everyone going to let this man disrespect me on my own show?" Gary spoke softly to a nearby producer. "I think it's best if I leave. This isn't productive for anyone." "Oh, so now you're the victim?" Joy barked, her laugh brittle, unhinged. "Run away, Gary. Go back to your British friends and tell them how horrible the Americans were to you. I'm sure they'll eat that up." Gary paused, gathering his notes. Then he looked at her one last time. "Joy, I came here to talk about a film about corruption and abuse of power. I didn't realize I'd be watching such a vivid demonstration of both," was the final domino. "Get out," Joy shrieked, voice cracking. "Security. I want him removed from the building." The audience gasped. A few booed. A few cheered. Most sat frozen, unsure where to look or what emotion to feel. Gary walked toward the exit with unshaken composure, stopping only to shake hands with Whoopi and the others pointedly ignoring Joy's continuing tirade. "This is exactly what's wrong with this country," she shouted behind him, voice echoing as he disappeared backstage. "No respect. No respect for the people who built this industry." Anna Navarro, who hadn't spoken once during the entire meltdown, finally opened her mouth. "Joy, maybe I should what?" Joy spun, hair wild, makeup smeared, eyes burning. "Maybe I should apologize? To someone who thinks he's better than us?" The studio was chaos. Audience members whispered. Producers scrambled. The hosts exchanged helpless looks. Whoopi stepped forward, the only one still calm. "Joy, we need to get back to the show. We're live. The cameras are rolling." Joy wasn't listening. She didn't care about the cameras. She didn't care about the show. She didn't care about anything except the humiliation she couldn't outrun. Her chest heaved. Her hands shook. She stared at the empty chair Gary had left behind as if it were taunting her. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered so softly. It was somehow more chilling than her screams. "I can't sit here and pretend what just happened was okay." Sarah approached gently. "Joy, honey, let's just take a breath, don't."
Ow.
Joy held up her hand like a weapon. "Don't try to manage me right now, Sarah. I know what everyone is thinking. I know you all think I went too far." She looked around wildly, anger melting into something raw and broken. "Don't try to manage me." The audience fell silent. Even the hum of the cameras felt louder. Anna cleared her throat nervously. "Joy, maybe we should talk about this privately." "Privately?" Joy barked a laugh, sharp and hollow. "There's nothing private about this. Everyone just watched me get humiliated by a guest on my own show. There's no coming back from that." Sonny Hostin stepped in gently. "You weren't humiliated, Joy. It was just a conversation. Joy exploded. "Sonny, he called me unprofessional on national television. He said I don't know how to do my job." Her voice cracked. "And you know what? Maybe he's right." The revelation hung in the air like a live wire. The hosts froze. The audience gasped. The crew stopped moving, and Whoopi, with a lifetime of experience handling chaos, stepped cautiously closer, ready to catch whatever happened next. "Joy, you've done this job brilliantly for years," Whoopi said gently. "One difficult interview doesn't erase that. It doesn't define you." But Joy's eyes were wild, now darting between her co-hosts, the audience, The camera's like she was searching for something she'd lost. Doesn't it? She whispered. Because I'm standing here realizing. I don't even remember why I was so angry at him. What was I trying to prove? Her voice trembled, not with rage this time. It was something far more dangerous. Clarity. That I could bully someone into agreeing with me? She continued, her gaze dropping to the table. That I could humiliate a respected actor because I didn't like something he said months ago in a completely different context. A hush fell over the studio. A real hush, the kind that comes when no one is performing anymore. The raw honesty pouring out of her was breathtaking. Unsettling. Joy Behar, the woman known for her sharp tongue, her confidence, her fire, was unraveling in front of a live audience. I've become everything I used to hate about television, she said, voice cracking just enough to betray the hurt. I've become the person who attacks people for sport, who twists words because drama gets ratings, who cares more about winning an argument than actually having one. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the camera operators seemed frozen in place. Joy lifted her face toward the nearest camera, her makeup streaked, her hair disheveled, but her eyes suddenly clear in a way they hadn't been all day. You know what? She said quietly. Gary Oldman was right about everything. I was unprofessional. I did misrepresent his words. I did attack him for no reason other than thinking I could get away with it. She took a trembling breath, one hand gripping the edge of the table for support. Well, she said, barely above a whisper, I can't get away with it anymore. Not with myself. Whoopi reached out, slow and careful. But Joy stepped back before her hand could land. I'm done, Joy said simply. The words were soft, final, like a door closing. I'm done with this show. I'm done with this chair. I'm done pretending that what we do most days is anything more than glorified gossip and manufactured outrage. Joy, sweetheart, Anna said, standing. You're upset. Let's go backstage, no? Joy unhooked her mic with steady hands. There's nothing backstage that changes what just happened out here. Nothing that changes the fact that I spent 20 minutes trying to destroy a man's reputation because I was too lazy to understand what he actually said. She set the mic and battery pack gently on the table. Click, and the sound echoed through the silent room. Ladies, she said, addressing the panel with a formality that made Anna's throat tighten. It has been an honor, truly. But I can't sit at this table knowing I've become the kind of person who attacks people for having thoughtful opinions. Sunny stood up, distressed. Joy, please. You're making a decision in the heat of the moment. Am I? Joy asked, her voice suddenly eerily calm. Because this feels like the first clear decision I've made in years. She turned to the audience, many of whom were now standing, unsure if they should applaud, gasp, or intervene. To everyone who's supported me, who's watched me all these years, I'm sorry. You deserved better than what you saw today. You deserved someone capable of having an intelligent conversation without turning it into a personal attack. She reached down, grabbed her purse, and slung it over her shoulder with a simple, decisive motion. Joy, Whoopi called after her, voice cracking. Joy, wait. But Joy Behar didn't wait. She didn't turn. She didn't wave. She didn't offer a final joke. She walked off the set of The View with the same determination that had defined her entire career, except this time. She was walking away from everything she had built. The camera stayed trained on the empty chair. A symbol. A moment. A reckoning. The remaining hosts sat in stunned silence, staring at the space where Joy had been, as though trying to understand the shape of the void she left behind. Finally, Whoopi breathed in, straightened her posture, and turned to the lens. We'll be right back, she said quietly. The screen cut to commercial. But everyone in that studio,
I know,
and everyone watching knew that when the show returned, nothing would be the same. Joy Behar had quit live on air. Not because of scandal, not because of controversy, but because of one devastating moment of self-awareness triggered by a guest who refused to be bullied. The image of that empty chair would become one of the most iconic, Moments in television history proof that the most dramatic exits don't always come from rage, but from finally seeing yourself exactly as you are.